program will begin shortly. Launch sequence. Activate. Warning, the following content is not politically correct. Viewer discretion is advised.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. So we didn't have an episode last week but you got an extra special episode that I filmed with Ariel while we were on vacation last week. So that was out there. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. We reacted to the Jubilee video of trans versus detrans. And then happy Easter. If you celebrate Easter, Passover, whatever you celebrate, happy holidays. And we're back tonight. So tonight we have a special guest joining me. She's been on my show before, and she is the editor-in-chief of the Post-Millennial and now Human Events as well. Libby Emmons, welcome.
Hey, Sarah. How's it going?
It's good. It's good. So I think so since you've been on my show when we did an interview last fall. Yeah, but it hasn't been a while since we've seen each other.
No.
We did, you were here in Atlanta, which we had some fun there.
That was fun.
And then we had a lot of fun on Timcast about a month or two ago.
That was great too. Yeah, that was fun.
So it's really good to have you. So the way that the new show is we just kind of go over what's going on, what's the news of the day. And so I guess actually, before we get into it, why don't you just introduce yourself so that everybody kind of knows who you are if they haven't done any of your other content.
I'm Libby Emmons. I'm the editor-in-chief at the Post-Millennial and also Human Events. You can find me on Twitter at Libby Emmons. You can subscribe to both our publications and go ad-free by going to thepostmillennial.com/subscribe. And yeah, that's pretty much my whole thing.
That's great. And I have your Twitter handle in the links below, so people can go check you out there. So
cool.
Actually, when did you take over Human Events as well? Because that merger has been kind of happening for a little while. I know when I wrote my first op-ed over there, it was kind of in the works. Yeah.
So Human Events took charge of Post-Millennial last May. And then we were working side by side, and then I was just given the reins to Human Events on March 1st.
That's great.
So yeah, I've been kind of working on a little bit different branding and same the way it looks, but like different content. We're doing a lot more international news, which has been a lot of fun because with the Post-Millennial, which I love very much, but we are domestic and Canada. So we're US and Canada, we're very North American. And so sometimes stories would come across from France or Japan, look fascinating. And it's like, we're not doing that. So as soon as Human Events opens up to international news, now we can cover a lot more wacky stuff from outside the Anglosphere. We did a lot of coverage of the South African energy crisis, which was interesting. We've had some Bolsonaro stuff from Brazil, Giorgia Meloni from Italy, and the recent bans on what she calls procreative tourism. Which is surrogacy. So if you're an Italian couple and you go overseas and you hire someone to have your baby for you, and then you take the baby back home, Italy will not give the child citizenship.
Interesting.
Yes, because surrogacy is illegal in Italy and France. So couples from Italy and France go to the U.S., hire American women to do literally the dirty work, and then take the child back home.
That's really interesting. Yeah, and I know I wrote a piece over there. I wrote an op-ed for Human Events this last week at your request.
Yeah, that was based on your tweet. It was really interesting.
Yeah. Which is, I have it in the docket today to talk a little bit about the whole topic in and of itself. But and then so I also wrote there was a piece on France, the macaron coming back from China this weekend, and saying some really interesting stuff.
Yeah, really leaning into China over Taiwan.
Yeah. I was like, wow. So you're saying this as soon as you leave there? Okay, I get.
Well, you know what
I
else?
got you.
Yeah, you know what else Macron did was he settled some energy purchases in yuan, which is the Chinese currency. So, if we have France, literally our oldest ally, is now hastening the decline of the US petrodollar, that's really messed up.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about France too is they're always protesting about something. There's something going on right now. But also, and they're always protesting for more freedom. And yeah, Macron seems to want a one Europe government. So
yeah,
it's things are getting a little bit interesting over there.
Well,
so
I would disagree. I would say that the French are not always protesting for more freedom. They're always protesting for more leisure.
Maybe that's what I consider leisure and freedom. It's all the same. Did you freeze? Uh-oh. All right.
Here? I lost you for a second.
I know. I was like, I lost you for a second. So, okay. But yeah, I mean, I guess the leisure and freedom are kind of the same.
Well, aren't they? I don't know. But I feel like that's what they're protesting for. They don't want their retirement age to grow up.
Yeah. So let's get into the first topic of the day, though, which is actually interesting. It kind of goes into what has been happening. We've seen happening with trans activists across the country. And I titled this Trans Activist Strike Again because the whole stuff that happened with Riley Gaines at the the San Fransisco State University campus. She was given a speech, and after her speech, she was violently assaulted and then basically kidnapped. So I'll play the video real quick.
It's just me. I'm good. I'm good. I'm coming. I'm good. Trust me, I'm good. Go ahead. You crying! You fucking crying, bitch! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Trans rights are human rights! Fucking right! My bitch is women are women!
All right, enough of that. That is that's just, I mean, it's vile.
It's pretty shocking to see that. There aren't any, and this was your piece, there aren't any trans people in that video.
No, exactly. Like you watch the video and you're like, wait a second. I mean, I don't see like maybe one that identifies as trans, but none actually look like what you would think. And leftists, and the leftist trans people, they want you to know they're trans.
Yeah, they want you to know everything about them so that you can put them in a box and not ever question them about anything.
No, that's exactly right.
They don't want to be individuals. They just want to be part of whatever collective,
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I think that was the whole point behind my piece was, and I'll pull this up real quick.
Yeah, it was a really strong piece.
So the whole point is that, yeah, you see, I haven't paid my $5 yet. But maybe since I'm working there, I can get it for free.
Right? I'm hoping for that too myself.
But that was the whole thing, is that the left has been pushing, they've co-opted the trans community, and they are pushing the narrative, and it ties in again with CRT and queer theory, where you don't, except for with CRT, they they had to get Black people to get on board with pushing their agenda. With queer theory, you just have to self-identify into this category, destroy the name of trans people, and then when you've destroyed the name and nobody wants to listen to you anymore, then you just choose a new identity.
Yeah, I feel like this whole trans activist mob thing is going to go very badly for trans people who are just trying to like go about their lives and exist. And instead what's going to happen is they're going to be cordoned off. You know, people are going to be made to believe that they're all violent activists and what have you. And the same kind of thing happened with the BLM riots, which you noted, and the protests. And I remember seeing an Instagram post from, I forget who it was, but it was a throwback Instagram post. And it was basically like, the time me and my girlfriend ran into a BLM protest and there were no Black people at all.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of stuff I saw in Brooklyn, and it was just a whole bunch of white people, you know, like at these protests, and there were no Black people. And it's like, who are you guys protesting for? You know, what are you doing?
Well, and it's obvious that they're not protesting for trans people, because if you are trans and you speak out, they shut you down. Like I noted in there, I've had 3 events where Antifa has tried to shut my events down. And the last one, they actually shut the venue down. They got the venue to shut down after we kept it quiet for months, and it actually got leaked the day before, and then they canceled the day before.
The venue canceled.
Thankfully, yeah, and because the police force actually told them that they didn't know if they would be able to provide security for us. And so the venue canceled because they didn't want their venue destroyed. I mean, they caved very quickly. And so I'm literally just checking into my hotel room, and I get told that they might have to cancel. I'm like, this is crazy. And so thankfully a church stepped up. I mean, it was one of the most, it enhanced my faith a lot, honestly.
Oh, nice.
Because a church stepped up, and it was kind of fitting that they stepped up, and we had an amazing event at this church that was like 40 minutes away from where it was supposed to be. But I mean, the event headliners were me and Chloe Cole, where we sat down and we talked together. And so you're shutting down a trans and a detransitioner. And so it doesn't make any sense that it's the whole movement is wrong. And you're right. It's starting to happen. I mean, we see the narrative online is how much backlash any trans person gets. Even I get, just because we're starting to see people say that just by being trans, you are pushing the ideology, which is categorically false.
Well, the thing too that everyone forgets is before this whole movement. So I was in theater, I was involved in the arts community. There have always been, as long as I've been involved, there's been like gay people, lesbians, you know, trans people, what have you. And it was never any kind of issue. If you're in like a theater space or whatever, and a trans person is using the women's bathroom, no woman cares at all. It's never like there's never an issue. The issue, I think, is when you have these like huge guys with beards wearing dresses, walking into the women's room being like, I'm a woman now. And you're like, actually, that's kind of scary. You're actually being kind of scary, you know? And that's just not the same kind of, nobody cared before. And now everything seems kind of scary. And part of that, I think, is that the trans activist movement is actively trying to shut down women. They say that advocating for women's rights is transphobic. Advocating for the rights of women and children is transphobic. Saying that children should grow up whole without being medicalized in service to gender ideology is transphobic. This is all what's said, and it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. But we watch it happen. Like you see the people in that video going after Riley Gaines, screaming horrible things at her. I actually described I was talking to my mom yesterday, and my mom is very progressive. And she was telling me about how political violence is terrible. And I was like, oh, for sure, political violence is terrible. And we disagree on so much, from abortion to like everything, to Ukraine, we disagree on everything. So borders, I mean, like, you name it. So we were talking, and she didn't raise me. So I'm always surprised when she thinks I should have her values. And I'm like, you didn't raise me though. Like, where would I have gotten your values? Anyways, so we're talking and she's telling me about political violence is terrible. And I was like, yeah, you won't believe what happened on Thursday. This woman, she was a collegiate swimmer. She went to San Francisco State University to give a talk on women's rights and to advocate for, women's fair competition. And she got shouted down and was essentially held hostage for 3 hours in a classroom. And my mom was shocked. And she was like, she was just speaking for women's rights. And I was like, yes, she was speaking for women's rights. And then she was like, but why? And I said, well, because she had competed against Leah Thomas, who swam for Penn and was trans and then won the national title. And then Riley Gaines tied with Thomas for 5th place, but the NCAA gave Thomas the prize and Riley Gaines had to wait for hers in the mail. So then my mom was like, oh, well, there's a lot of political violence on both sides. And I was like, what are you talking about? She says, well, Holocaust deniers. And I was like, oh, has there been a lot of violence from Holocaust deniers? Because I haven't seen it. And we would definitely cover that at the Post-Millennial. We would definitely 100% cover violence from Holocaust deniers. We are pro-Jew. Like, we're like, well, we would cover this. And she was like, well, I haven't seen any. And I was like, so what are you talking about? And she was just making it up. She was just making it up. And I was like, oh, okay, then. Well, then I'm not going to go looking for that story. You fabricated it. Literally fake news, Mom. But yeah, I mean, it's so bizarre how like no one can just like look at facts and be like, okay, these are the facts we're looking at. What do we do now? Yeah.
But you're right. I do feel, and maybe it's the same way that in this, I've said this time and time again. I think that, the internet's not real. And it was clear to me even last week as me and Ariel, we went to the backwoods of Georgia. We went to North Georgia. We went to this bar in the small town of Georgia, and it was like all lesbians working there.
That's awesome.
Ariel asked, she's like, is this a lesbian owned bar? I mean, this is like a 1-horse town, like not even a stoplight in the town. And they were like, no. And she's like, just a lot of work here. She's like, yeah. And the girl was like, yeah. She goes, we're a pretty progressive town. And I'm like, oh. But I was like, but you gotta remember,
conservative lesbians.
But you have to remember, in that part of town, progressive means that they're accepting of LGBT people.
Right.
It doesn't mean like progressive as we use the word. It's like,
right. It doesn't mean they're coming for your guns.
Yeah. But and then it was you talked about the bathroom. It was kind of funny. I mean, me and Ariel went into this bathroom, and these older ladies, we were washing our hands, and Ariel strikes up a conversation. This lady is like they were from Florida, and Ariel was like, oh, MAGA country. And they were like, they got in this whole kick about how they love Trump and everything like that. I'm like,
oh, wow.
Yeah. And they don't say it, and they didn't care that I was in their bathroom. So it was one of those things, like, it's just what we see on Twitter is not real.
Yeah, I mean, it's real to a certain extent, for sure, because we all exist online. I was looking at this recently because Zaya Wade, Dwayne Wade's trans child, who is now doing a whole modeling career, and like stepped out on the runway at 15, and it's this whole affirming thing. Even though like 20 years ago there was a campaign in the fashion industry to end teen models, to not have teen models anymore because it was so dangerous for their body image, and now it's like a bonus for the body image of a trans 15-year-old, but still not okay for 15-year-old females to do it.
Yeah.
So that's weird too. But separately from that, Zaya Wade gave an interview and was talking about how important it is for LGBT youth to have access to social media so that they can like be affirmed online and find access to people who share their identity. In the recent Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling podcast from the Free Press, there was an interview with a trans teenager who was born female and then was saying that what was really important was finding a community online. And the
Uh-oh. I think I lost you again. Libby.
I don't know if it's me or you.
I think it's you because I keep losing you, but I don't know.
It's probably, I'm sure it's me. I'm always the problem. But on the podcast, the trans teenager was saying that he discovered his identity online, that just felt weird, and then it turned out that they were trans, and this was an online discovery. And so Twitter and social media certainly is the real world in a lot of ways, because it can really push you in one direction of reality or the other.
Well, I actually would say that that's why it's not the real world. It's because you get brainwashed into thinking that something's different, that it's not. Like, that's the whole thing. That's part of Chloe Cole's story as well. It was Instagram, and she was seeing these models that she never thought that she could live up to, and so she was having body issues. And then she goes, well, and she liked boy things, and so she clinged, and then she saw trans men and cling to that idea, and that's what led her down the path that it was. And so I think social media is a detriment. And it's like, when I absolutely believe in the theory, like when I'm depressed or anything like that, it's get outside, but these kids aren't actually getting outside and touching grass. So they're consumed by their world online. Like, it is, their world is becoming virtual, and they will have no issues going into the pod.
Yeah, they are. The educational system does its best to make sure that they are manageable cogs in the algorithm.
Yeah. Well, and that segues into what I was going to go back to Riley Gaines' situation, because we have a problem with the media and how they report these things. I mean, we saw it with the trans shooter, how they basically almost victim blamed, or at least covered for the shooter. But then even in the Riley Gaines stuff, I mean, have you seen these headlines?
Let's see.
Trans rights protesters fill Riley Gaines state event. Probably the worst one. Anti-Leah Thomas activists escorted by police amid protests.
Yeah, I mean, Riley Gaines is not an anti-Leah Thomas activist. She's a pro-women's swimming activist.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, she watched her teammates lose to Thomas. And the thing with Thomas is, like, he towers over these girls. You watch the jump into the pool. It's like, so much power. He's like, there's so much power in that body.
I can't with Leah Thomas.
What I don't understand is how, if you're Leah Thomas and you're looking at these girls, right? And like, you're into equity and inclusion, you got to look at yourself and be like, whoa, maybe I am no match. Maybe these girls are no match for me. And perhaps I should take my elite athletic physique to a different venue of competition.
Well, Libby, inclusion is the key to evolution. Didn't you know that?
we were talking about that today with that Bud Light GP.
Yes.
It makes no sense. Did you listen to the whole podcast?
I didn't. I just listened to what we had that we were writing
to the clip. Yeah.
Yeah. I have the whole podcast pulled up, but no.
Yeah, I'm planning to listen to the whole thing too. If I can get through it.
Yeah. If you don't know what we're talking about, everybody, so you probably know the controversy surrounding Bud Light and everything going on. Well, their new VP came out and talked about, their marketing strategy and inclusion and how it's the key to equity, or it's the key to evolution, because you have to evolve with the times, kind of deal. they want to get away from that frat boy mentality, I guess.
Right.
And so I think the worst part about this whole Riley Gaines situation is this one that you guys reported on yesterday, that Josh reported on, was the statement made by the campus
it was shocking.
itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Let me see, is it in here? I think I have it pulled up. It was, oh yeah, here we go. I'll pull this up. So basically says, today San Francisco State finds itself at the center of national discussion. Let me begin by saying clearly the trans community, not talking about like women's rights, it's the trans community is welcome and belongs at San Francisco State. Further, our community fiercely believes in unity, connection, care, and compassion. They didn't have a lot of compassion for Riley Gaines. And we value different ideas, and even when they are not our own. So they value different ideas, but unless you disagree with them.
And even that are not their own unless you disagree. Yeah, exactly. And
I think and then it said, literally, thank you to our students who participated peacefully in Thursday evening's event. It took tremendous bravery to stand in challenging spaces. I am proud of the moments where we listened and asked insightful questions. I am also proud of the moments our students demonstrated the value of free speech and the right to protest peacefully. Like, did she watch the same video as everybody else? Because that is not what happened.
That's not what happened. And you had that one woman screaming like, oh, you crying, bitch? Are you crying? And it's like, really? This is the state of discourse for these university students?
Exactly. And that is what it is. I mean, it's the silent or words are violence crowd. Like literally they said peaceful protest, but Riley said she was assaulted. And now, because especially after that statement, she is suing the university, which she should. I completely agree with that course of action.
I agree too. I was thinking about the words are violence thing. I think I wrote something down saying, hold on one second. So I was going to write an op-ed about it and then I didn't. But the rhetoric that claims that bills protecting women and girls are an attack on trans persons, using the lie of trans genocide, it gives cover and makes space for people who would be violent and retaliate with actual physical violence. Because if you say this is violence, then that, a person can use that to justify violence.
No, that's exactly what it is. Actually, I was on my friend's podcast that it's called Undoctrinated. It was with Fee, and that's basically what my friend Maggie had said. She said basically what you're doing is justifying and giving more people the excuse to execute like shootings and stuff like this, which will almost inevitably create copycats, which we saw another one that was stopped in Colorado.
There was an almost shooting in Colorado. There's violent shootings in this country all the time. It's kind of wacky to think about getting to a point in your own upsetness about your own life that what you need to do is take a bunch of people out with you. There must be like such a fantasy going on in your head about what that's going to mean.
Yeah. And how it's going to feel, because this is why I actually have a policy on this channel to not actually name shooters, because I do believe that just naming them gives them notoriety, and it could bring them, they think it's going to bring them fame even in death. And so if you're already suicidal, might as well go out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But which is interesting, leading into the next topic, which is interesting. I don't know who Rebeka Jones is, but you can explain that one. But claimed Governor DeSantis ordered a kidnapping of her son while he was arrested on suspicion of planning a mass shooting. So actually, who is Rebeka Jones? I'm not familiar with who that is. I just saw this story and thought it was crazy.
Rebeka Jones was working in Florida. I forget what agency she was working with, but she was like a low-level data person. And she had made claims that the DeSantis administration was falsifying COVID data in order to downplay the numbers of COVID in the state. It turned out, if my memory serves, that this was actually totally fake. And she didn't really have access to the information that she was talking about anyway. And she was wrong. So she got mad. I don't know if she got fired or she quit or whatever, but she was essentially disgraced in Florida.
Yeah. And it seems like she is a serial liar, though. Like, that's kind of what I'm learning.
Yeah.
Like, this situation, she tweeted out. Let me see if it pulls up. Yeah. My family is not safe. My son has been taken on the governor's orders, and I have sent my husband and daughter out of state for their safety. This is the reality of living in DeSantis' Florida. There is no freedom here, only retaliatory rule by a fascist who wishes to be king.
Mm-hmm.
And
meanwhile, the boy was arrested for digital threats of terrorism.
Yeah, I think I have. We can pull that up too, because this is Andy's tweet.
Yeah, Andy was on it.
Saying he told his friend, spoke with the teenager, as well as those messages he saw on social media. In the messages to his friend said, "I want to shoot up the school. If I get a gun, I'm going to shoot him up. I'm getting wrath and natural selection shirts, so maybe I don't think many people know what the Columbine shooters look like." And continued on that path. And she claimed it was all about memes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the video surfaces that she walked her son to the police station, not that with her husband. She didn't. Like, it was all a fabricated lie. I thought this was on kidnapping orders. So Andy said that her tweets were to promote her GoFundMe, which is kind of interesting. But then after all of that even surfaced, she doubled down, saying, "What's the difference between a wannabe school shooter and an actual school?" Well, I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Libby. Make sure. One second. All right. Libby's going to come back. We'll see if this helps. I can't believe it. Libby broke the internet, broke the stream. Jeez.
Hi.
I can't hear you now.
I think it was an issue where StreamYard was being on my phone. Sorry.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
That's why. Okay.
It opened in Twitter and then whatever. I put it in. Sorry.
It's okay. You're good. Yeah. So then she's.
I run a website. I am tech savvy.
I can't say anything. You're my boss. So.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying anyway, Sarah.
All right. So what's the difference? But so she doubles down and says, what's the difference between a wannabe school shooter and an actual school shooter? Like, what is she trying to get with this? And it's still up.
I don't know. Is that a joke, or that should be the setup for a joke?
Like, I had to click on this to make sure it wasn't like Dennis, like trolling, and it wasn't. Like, it says guns. It says guns is the difference.
Oh, I see.
So
many of these school shooters have their guns legally. Like, they legally have guns.
Well, that's the issue in so many of the cases, not even just with school shooters, but a lot of these shooters in general, is that they either have their guns legally or they were on, the FBI's radar for years and they never did anything. Even like the one nightclub shooting in Colorado, it could have been, I mean, they have red flag laws in Colorado that they could have taken this person's guns knowing he was dangerous, and they'd never enforce them.
Yeah, that's a wacky one too, is like a lot of times they are on the FBI watch list already. Yeah, or like they've already been reported.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is that like a law enforcement issue?
Yeah. And so actually you made a post today. I don't know. I think it would be a law enforcement issue. But you made an interesting post today, and it's something that I've talked about quite a bit on different shows, and even on this channel. I've made videos and written articles about it, is that it's not a guns issue, it's a SSRI issue.
Right.
So because, I mean, I've talked about this a lot. I think that's not even the root. It's not even just a SSRI issue, it's a big pharma issue. Because big pharma is the root of so many issues.
I think there's a lot having to do with that as well. The Buffalo shooter was, I think, on SSRIs. There's been a lot of reports of people taking psychiatric medication. And there is something, I've been thinking about this. There is this, so you have people taking a lot of these different like psych drugs, you know what I mean? And you have the Biden administration, you have everyone always pushing mental health. And they're also always saying that there's no such thing as normal, but they're constantly trying to get everyone to some state of normal, whether it's with like therapies or drugs or whatever else. They're constantly trying to like get you to normal. So imagine if there you are, you're taking a whole bunch of drugs, you still don't feel normal, you still don't feel like you fit in. You're being told that now you should feel like you fit in. Now you should be part of everything. You should be happy and doing all the things, jumping through rainbows and eating Skittles and whatever else it is that makes people happy. You should be doing all these things. And then you're still not. It's almost like we have an entire mental health industry designed to tell you that you don't have to be normal while trying to force you to be normal.
Yeah.
That's
no,
weird.
You're right. It's like when they sell SSRIs, the same way as they sell HRT medications to trans people, that these are some magic cure for the issues that you're dealing with, and they aren't. What I've talked about is the fact that, I mean, 40% of the people that take SSRIs feel emotional numbness. That's what they report.
This is what I've heard from friends. They just don't feel like they'll have any emotional life after that. They just feel like they're separate from themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I wonder, I've theorized that, possibly some of that is, and that's one of the reasons, not just for the homicide rates and everything like that, but all the recent crime spikes. The violent crime is starting to go up. It hit an all-time low in 2018, and now it's on the rise as COVID pushed so many people onto SSRIs.
You also have a huge over medication of children and teens. And the New York Times did reporting on that this summer. We picked it up and did some more reporting on it. And a lot of kids who are in foster care are really over medicated, like kids, preteens, children, teens in foster care. And it's like people are trying to manage them. So they jack them full of all of these drugs. A lot of the drugs too that kids are put on are not FDA approved for that age group. So they're on like a bunch of different drugs that aren't approved for them and that aren't necessarily approved to be taken as a cocktail.
Yeah, so they don't know exactly what it's going to do to the child. I mean, it's the same with like testosterone. We're seeing the same stuff with testosterone and trans youth or puberty blockers. They're not approved for that use. It's the same cycle. And I've, especially with like SSRIs and stuff, it's like the government backs these big pharma companies because they finance their campaigns and all that stuff, where we know that psychedelic medications with a therapist has shown proven results, yet they won't just let anybody try it. And I have friends that are like, I would love to do like LSD psychotherapy, which has been proven to yield results for up to a year, you know?
I don't know. I took plenty of LSD outside of a therapeutic context. And I don't necessarily think it helps anything. I did not find it helpful. I did at one point write a play that was based on a hallucinogenic experience I had, and that play is unintelligible. It makes no sense.
I prefer mushrooms, honestly. Mushrooms kind of reset the brain, in my opinion. Now we're going down. Now we're going down the whole Joe Rogan route, and
right. No, I've done the mushrooms before too. I do find them to be a little more mellow than LSD.
A lot more mellow.
LSD is almost like a violent assault on your body. You know, like you're done with that, and you're like, God damn.
But if you take a small dose, I know, because it's 12 hours of crazy, but
you have to have a full 12
plus
hours.
The after effect. Yeah. Mushrooms is 4 hours and it's much more mellow. But I mean, if you do it again in the comfort of a therapist who's guiding you through and you're working through your issues, seems like it's something that could be beneficial. But people should at least have the right to try it. You know?
I barely even trust the mental health industry at this point. Like,
well, that's the problem.
I just don't know. I had a therapist a couple of years ago, and she was dismissive of my faith, and then she was also dismissive of my profession. She was like, "Well, you don't really believe that," and I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm actually totally opposed to abortion." And she spent a whole bunch of time trying to convince me that I should not be opposed to abortion. I'm like, this is not your purview.
This is not therapy. That's not therapy at all. I do have friends that are therapists, and I make sure, like, if I need recommendations for who to go see, I talk to them because, you're right. I mean, this is the same type of stuff. Again, going back to the trans stuff, because that's what I know the most is, like, we know that therapists are pushing this stuff, and people are like, that's not even what therapists do. Yes, it is. Like you're telling me in a different situation, that's what they do. That's exactly what they do.
And it's like part of the entire mental health infrastructure. And you have Biden like pushing mental health into every school, turn every school into a community school where people show up there for the food pantry and the mental health and the, drug rehab. And that's not what we need at schools. No. It's a totally separate story. So what else you got? What else do you want to talk about?
All right, yes. We're going to move on to the next topic, hard segue, into, let's see.
I got to say, I like a hard segue. It's clean. It's a nice break.
I like it too. So Donald Trump surges in the polls after his indictment. So this one's interesting because, let's see, where is it?
I'm glad you don't have the toe fungus ads up. I hate those.
I don't know.
They really gross me out.
Yeah, I know. I let's see.
I mean, I understand, you got toe fungus. You want to know how to handle that, but it grosses me out.
What is it? after his indictment, Trump doubled his lead over DeSantis. That's. I knew this was going to happen, though. I said, and this is the thing, I said if they perp walked him, I said this 2 weeks ago, if they perp walked him, that was going to be it. He was going to become a martyr. And he still has become a martyr to everybody who's anti-establishment.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting too. And it's especially interesting given that coming into this jump-started election season, which was jump-started by Trump announcing way sooner than anybody would ever announce. I mean, he announced November 15th, 14th of this past year. And I was down there at Mar-a-Lago when it happened. It was actually pretty fascinating. But yeah, it was cool. I was like, hey, that's cool. But anyway, do you know I keep getting comments? People don't like that I giggle on the like, that's funny. What are you gonna do? Anyways, so yeah, so he really jump-started the election season. Nobody does that. DeSantis has done this soft launch. He's out there with his book tour. He's making noise in a bunch of different states. I think he's coming up in North Carolina or something soon.
He was here last week, I think.
Yeah, he's been in Iowa like twice, if memory serves.
Yeah.
They have the campaign press team. They have the governor's press team. They have all this stuff going on. I feel like he should have announced if he was going to announce. Instead, with this little soft non-announcement, he leaves plenty of room for everyone to go after him, for everyone to speculate, but he doesn't leave a lot of room for himself to like really step up and go hard otherwise. And also with Trump, what you have is the whole MAGA base. They love him, right? So if he threw his weight behind another candidate fully and honestly, I think that other candidate would get the MAGA America First base's support. But instead, we're just watching the witch hunt against Donald Trump, the mounting investigations and cases that are coming harder and harder. I think he's showing up this week to face some garbage from Letitia James, who's the Attorney General of New York State. He's got this stupid Alvin Bragg stuff. His next time in court is December 4th, which is like right before the New Hampshire primaries.
Yeah.
It's like,
Libby, come back.
I don't know if my kid is just playing too much TF2 or what. I don't
It's fine.
know. But
So,
yeah,
well,
I mean, the more these authoritarian
you're right, yes, to invest in echo reduction.
Do you want me to get my AirPods? I'm literally sitting here in a small hot room, so I don't know what rich ass you're talking about.
And apparently a laptop, but your laptop's sitting right behind you.
I do have a laptop. You want me to get my AirPods, Mr. Whoever it was with the avatar? Mr. Avatar.
Their name's Psycho. So and
apparently I have, dude.
I know.
I have it.
It's a nice one too. It's nicer than what I have.
I know, it's so nice. I'll get my AirPods. Hang on.
Okay.
The last time I had AirPods, I was told they didn't. I bet it's the same. Yeah.
Well, you're a little bit louder, and actually it crackles.
Oh my God. I don't even have the fan on in here because I didn't want it to be noisy. My whole point is, the more they come for Trump, the more the base is going to love him.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that's my whole thing is, I don't know if Trump is I don't know if he's the right candidate that's going to entice everybody to vote for him to win. I think it's going to be a reliance that Biden's just doing such a bad job, and it's going to be one of these against the Democrat votes that would get him elected. But I mean, look what we saw in Georgia. Look what we saw all over the country. Trump candidates didn't actually do that well. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I think that he has a lot of support. What's that?
A bunch of his candidates won.
Well, you're right. A bunch of them did, but a bunch of them
Oz didn't win, but he sucked so hard. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that was the same as Herschel Walker in Georgia. Like, he was a bad candidate. And that was part of the problem is Republicans have not had good candidates, which it was really interesting because our lieutenant governor was endorsed by Trump and he got elected handily. Yeah. So
and so did Brian Kemp, who Trump hated, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Georgia does. That's one thing about Georgia.
He smacked Stacey Abrams yet again.
This time it was bad. He did so. I like Brian Kemp because of what he did for COVID, and that was the whole reason why Trump didn't like him, though. And that was it was a lot of that stuff. But he did a great thing, and then he just passed my bill the other day, and he actually was pushing for it on the floor of the Capitol a couple weeks ago.
What was your bill?
It was the one I sent you, the last one I freelance for you. It passed. We banned.
Right.
Yeah, we banned all the surgeries and hormones for minors.
For minors, that's right. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. Because like minors can't do anything else. Right. It all kind of started when progressives started advocating for 12-year-olds to be able to have abortions without parental consent. And I remember at the time being like, that's not like assuming that everyone's parents are abusive is not the right thing.
That's never the right thing. That's what's happening with schools. That's why I'm so against schools keeping secrets from parents. It's one of the most awful things that you can do. And we see it time and time again where bad things happen when they do. And actually, there was a report out of England that talked about therapists were actually telling parents to not socially transition their child. And then the schools were doing it anyways, against their wishes.
Yeah, because they don't think that parents have any rights for their kids.
Or even their therapist has a right to tell them what to do. Like they think that they are the experts on this, and they are far from it.
Yeah, because they went to like teachers college or whatever.
Yeah,
like that's not.
They learned how they're not trained. That's the thing is they're not even trained therapists, and that's that's why you have to tell parents this stuff is so that they can get them to a trained therapist, which that's the whole case that sparked the parental choice bill in Florida, because the school hid the child's transition and the child attempted suicide twice.
Yeah, and the wild thing about that story was that the teachers assumed that the parents were abusive because they were Catholic.
Yes, that's not right. That was crazy.
Yeah,
Catholics are generally pretty open. Catholics are
and the dad was like, you totally misunderstand our faith. We love our children unconditionally.
Yeah. I mean, I'm Catholic. Okay. Yeah, I go to Catholic church. Like everybody's pretty good at Catholic church. Like everybody's cool. So you're right. They completely misjudge Catholics. I would say Catholics are pretty progressive in a lot of ways.
And did you see now it turns out, so Jim Jordan and the Weaponization of Government Committee uncovered more of the FBI going after Catholics, in fact, sending FBI agents into churches to try and like uncover the extremists who go to Latin Mass or what have you.
This is why we just need to end the Fed completely. End it all.
All right, libertarian. All right.
The one good thing about all this Trump stuff is that it gets conservatives on board with ending it all.
Right? Burn it all down. Yeah.
Now nobody, I mean, after Jan 6 and the Trump indictment and all this stuff, everybody's like, the FBI is garbage. They're everywhere. Don't trust anyone. It's like, yes.
Well, the FBI seems totally wacky right now. I mean, going after Catholics, using the SPLC as a source with which to target Catholics as a hate group.
Yeah.
Citing the term based as an indicator of domestic extremism. Yeah. Well, I think we covered that today. That's nuts.
But then you also have all these Soros-backed DAs across the country that are doing all this stuff. Like we saw twice this week. We have the Bragg stuff, who doesn't even want to prosecute self-defense charges anyways in New York until he's forced to. He puts people in Rikers for days before dropping charges when it's clear self-defense.
That was crazy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was the bodega worker last year, but then this week, was it this week or last week? There was the parking garage attendant who was attacked, shot, stole the person's gun and shot the other person. Then he gets charged with the same crime of having an illegal firearm and attempted murder. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's legal to defend yourself. That's part of the entire. That's like the point. But yeah, Alvin Bragg doesn't care if the city goes straight to hell. He just wants to be revered by all the progressives in New York for having perp walked Trump and brought him to trial. It was interesting too how the judge said no video cameras in the courtroom, but then they made sure that they got their Trump in court photo of him sitting on those wooden benches downtown. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But he got the applause of a lifetime here at this UFC event over the weekend.
That was amazing. That was wild.
It's like, look at all that toxic masculinity.
Right? I mean, that's the thing, is like, it's okay to have all that. It's like, there's a point to the binary. You can have all these things. Well, it's interesting too how androgyny now, like when I was a kid in the 90s, androgyny there was like an androgyny fashion statement. We had heroin chic, where boys and girls all looked the same. No one had any body at all. No one had a butt. That was like part of the trend. And now androgyny, like, it's not enough to just have androgyny as a fashion statement. You have to like make it permanent. It's kind of a wacky thing. It's like, why not just like be like, do whatever, like wear whatever, it's not that big a deal. I feel like
I appreciate toxic masculinity. It's a good thing.
I tell my son, I'm like, you're going to grow up to be a big, tall, hairy man, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's a good thing.
It's fine. It's a good thing. You're going to be 6 foot tall. You're going to be giant. It's okay.
He'll attract the right women. It's perfect.
We talk about that too. I'm like, be careful of women who want you to do everything for them. And he's like, don't worry, Mom, I'm not a simp. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I don't even know what that means. Okay.
Smart kid.
Right.
Not a simp.
He's the one actually out there, sucking my internet dry so that I can't use it. I don't even know if that's how it works.
I think actually your tweet in reaction. I think your tweet in reaction to that was, I was on the floor. I was dead because you said Joe Biden couldn't even get this reaction, even if it was on Broadway. You're back.
I don't know why this is happening. This has not happened to me in months. That it's just like shorts out. I have the most of the internet that I was allowed to buy.
Oh, maybe you need Starlink.
Whatever it is, the Wi-Fi or something. Maybe I need to restart it or something. Starlink, right? I'll just call up. Call up Elon Musk. No, I'll call up Ian Miles Chong. I'll be like, yo, Ian, connect me to Elon. I gotta get this.
No, but your tweet to that was pretty good because yes, Joe Biden could not get that crowd. And what is it? You said he couldn't even get that crowd on the Broadway showing of Cuties, and I was dead.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. I thought that was rather apt. Yeah.
So going into the Biden administration, I thought this was actually really interesting for kind of our last, maybe shorter segment, was this whole idea that the Biden administration is bringing in influencer, like an influencer army. They're going to give influencers a briefing room at the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this was interesting because I wrote it up, but that's not there.
I'm glad you wrote that up. Yeah, no, I don't think anyone should be surprised by this, but I do think that we should make sure we are aware of it. When Jen Psaki was leading the press response at the White House for COVID and for the start of the Ukraine entanglement, she brought in influencers. She brought in influencers and gave them the messaging for COVID. Then she gave them the messaging for Ukraine. And they know that these influencers, a lot of them are not super up on the news cycle. They maybe are not doing a ton of their own investigation and digging. So the White House comes in, glamour.
Oh, there's the... She'll be back.
I don't know.
She'll be back.
So Jen Psaki was already doing this. Karine Jean-Pierre was doing this. Now, Trump did also have a meeting with influencers. I know that Tim Pool went to the White House in the Trump administration and talked to the crew there. But having an influencer team in the White House, it should really just be called the propaganda press room, because that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, and I remember because this has always been kind of one of those things that's it's really weird, because they did have that TikToker that made the video at the White House, remember, with the long fingernails and all that stuff and doing all that stuff.
Oh, that guy with the white suit, the white suit guy. So the thing about the white suit video that really I found troubling was that he was not wearing a blouse or anything or a shirt underneath. There was nothing, and I just could not imagine the dry cleaner bill after that. That must have been so. I was just oh man, put on a shirt. It's okay to wear clothing. It's okay to wear a shirt. But that was terrible, and it was so embarrassing, because I remember that video dropped at the same time as some actual serious piece of news dropped, and they just looked so stupid for touting this whole, oh my God, he's actually not downloading porn. This person here, Mr. Avatar. Yeah, I don't think that's what's going on. I literally have access to all of his everything. I have access. I have passwords.
Everything.
I have it all, because I know what young men are like.
So do I.
Yeah, I bet you do. I have all the passwords. We're getting off soon. Anyway. No, he's out there playing. He's playing TF2 with his friend online. So.
Oh yeah, that's always gonna draw it.
Yeah, because it's spring break.
So. Oh, okay. But yeah, so they did, and I remember when Ukraine happened, it was oh, so you're gonna get all these Gen Zers that know nothing about the world and just give them the talking points to go pitch to everybody. I think that's interesting. And you're right, because now they've basically hired, and this is where I think you get into a little bit of ethics violations, is because now they have 4 paid employees that work for the White House to basically give out propaganda to the country, which all those influencers should now have US backed state-run media accounts.
Either that, or why not just put the influencers in the press room? Let them ask questions with Pete Ducey and Kristen Welker and everybody else.
Apparently, that's what they had asked for. From the report, that's what they had asked for, and then they were we're just going to give you your own room, and we're going to push this. But if they move in to start pushing campaign stuff, then it's going to be an issue.
Well, that would be a serious violation. Even when you talk to the DeSantis camp, I've tried to ask the governor's press office questions, and they're like, nope, that's a campaign question. I'm like, damn it. But you guys always get back to me.
Yeah, exactly. So they're going to have to, if they give briefings to these influencers, they're going to have a C-SPAN camera in there at all times, so that the people can actually monitor to make sure that they're not pushing campaign propaganda out there, because that will be a huge issue. But there's got to be some oversight. Right. But yeah, this is it's going to be the Dylan Mulvaney's of the world pushing the
I would switch to cellular, but that's even worse here where I am. There's like no cell service.
Libby, this is what you get for leaving New York. Where are you? All right, there you are. This is what you get for leaving New York.
I know, it's criminal, but at least I'm not getting stabbed on the subway.
That is true.
That helps.
I am glad you left New York because you're safe. But
right.
This is just going to turn into the Dylan Mulvaney show all day, every day at the White House.
Yeah, I don't think things are going as that great for Dylan Mulvaney. The attacks, there's just so many attacks. I kind of hate to see it, even as much as I think that the 365 Days of Girlhood project warrants the constant attacks. I do kind of hate to see this poor kid just constantly getting lambasted. I don't know if Mulvaney knew what 365 Days of Girlhood was really going to entangle him in, but I don't know. I don't know about this. I do feel bad for him, but I'm gonna keep attacking.
Well, that's the thing is, I mean, then Dylan plays
next?
into this.
Is
Dylan
the
plays
next
into
thing going to be
right?
like jockey panties? Is he going to do that next?
But that Dylan
little
plays
hanky
so
panky.
Much into it.
No, hanky panky would be more of the brand. Right?
Yeah, but I mean, you do start to feel bad because you know that these brands are using him, which I learned more about that this weekend too, was about CEI scores from the HRC. And how,
I remember you were working on that.
And so how these companies, it costs them more to lose their CEI scores, which is tied into their ESG score, than it would be by these protests that will go away in like a month. And so they have to use somebody like Dylan Mulvaney to push these woke narratives so that they get all this press for being an inclusive company. And so I think we need to really take a deep dive. I'm leaning more into taking that deep dive into ESG and everything like that, because BlackRock and all those places.
And the other thing too, Congress had recently tried to pass a bill making it illegal for retirement companies to invest based on ESG scores, and Biden vetoed that. So in order to get into people's retirement funds, you have to make sure your ESG is high, because that's part of it now. And of course, that's not actually going to make anybody any money. That's just no.
It will hurt them. There are a couple financial investing firms out there that are trying to go the opposite direction and steer away from ESG. I don't remember what it was. I had read it in that report, but it makes a lot of sense as to why so many of these companies are kind of like, especially a company like Bud Light would go to Dylan Mulvaney. It just makes sense when you see what they're doing. And yes, the VPs and all this stuff, they may believe this stuff, they may not. They just know it's what they have to say in order to keep their good standing with, the HRC. Yeah,
exactly. And it's really not, that's not what businesses should be doing, because you can't serve two masters at once. No. You can't serve your ESG score and your shareholders at the same time. And the shareholders are going to be the ones that are going to suffer. And those shareholders, that's like the Ontario Teachers Union. I mean, we're not talking about like some big Park Avenue fella. We're talking about like literal retirement pension funds put together by, whatever school district or the garbage men collection union thing, whatever it is. That's what you're talking about, the restaurant workers.
I mean, the CEO of BlackRock basically said if they don't play along and be a good corporate governance, you know, they basically won't be a corporation anymore because they like BlackRock and all them will pull their money.
Yeah.
And so
it's messed up.
That is, and that's even when you look at like Alta, when all that stuff happened with Alta, their stock took a little hit and then skyrocketed within like a week. And so boycotts are not effective against these types of campaigns.
And even just personal ones, it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter where you spend your personal money, no matter what they tell you about, you know, what is it, eat locally, and I don't know, something
whether the offspring or Travis Tritt are having a cat fight, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, what it's like, I think I tweeted out that story. I was like, Kid Rock and Travis Tritt versus the Offspring. Like, okay.
Well, and you remember, I actually forgot about this when I was writing that article, but I forgot that the Offspring fired their drummer because he could not get a COVID vaccine. And so they've gone woke.
And he's working with Tim Pool now, which is cool.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think two of their recent singles have the Offspring drummer on it.
Nice. And then Phil. So it's
Phil.
They're just a bunch of rockers over there, right?
I know. I go over there and I'm like, I don't play any instruments, but my kid plays piano. He's really good.
Put him in there.
Right. Yeah.
All right, Libby. This was great. Thank you so much.
I'm so sorry about the internet, the Wi-Fi,
It's fine. It's fine for the live stream. And what I end up doing is I will start clipping these and I can just cut out those sections. So during the clips, they won't be in there.
They'll just be me going like,
and then disappearing for a second. As I'm talking, you'll be like, as I'm talking, and then when I leave it to you to talk, it'll be like, it'll cut.
It'll be like the disappearing lady in the denim shirt. Yeah.
All right, Libby, though.
All right.
Where can everybody find you again?
On Twitter, at Libby Emmons. thepostmillennial.com/subscribe. I'm supposed to say that all the time now. It's the new thing I'm supposed to say. And humanevents.com.
And you can go ad free for as little as $5 a month. Obviously, I haven't done it yet.
Let me see if I can. There should be a staff login. There should be like a staff membership login.
There should be, right?
But I'm going to propose it when we get off the phone. Off the, the screen, the thing. Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate it. Sorry for being all over the place.
You're fine. And this was actually fun because it shows this is how me and Libby conversations always happen off air. Right. And so.
So it works out. This was real life. And you say the internet's not real life.
Me and Libby laugh a lot usually, which I actually find, like when I go on other people's shows, I actually get to show my personality, where usually my topics are very serious and they don't show my personality. So people, if they just watch me, they think I would be like this super serious person all the time. I'm like, that's not me at all.
No, you're wicked fun. That's the thing.
Wicked, yeah.
Wicked fun. I grew up outside of Boston, so I get to say that sometimes. It slips in.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, everybody, you guys know where to find me. Click that like and subscribe button. Follow me across all social media platforms, and I will see you next time.